Hey there, good morning. This is JB Portillo, and this is In with Flynn. And today, as always, I have Mayor Flynn with us. Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Did you freeze to death coming in?
Well, practically. It's been pretty cold the last few days.
It totally has.
Yeah.
You know, while we're right there, I just want to give your street department, the street department, kudos because, oh my goodness, Bella Vista was in great shape compared to a lot of places over the last few days.
Yeah, they are really fired up about it and really determined to do a good job. I actually think our street department is the best in Northwest Arkansas at clearing snow. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons is our topography. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not as flat as some places, so of course that makes it really challenging for people. I think they're aware of that, and they really want to be safe and get things cleared so people can, you know, move around safely. So.
Yeah. Well, in an effort to take care of all those people, not just the streets, but the fire things and all that, we've got an impact fee election thing coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to mention is that we've started to use our impact fees.
Oh.
And for instance, in the fire department, we started the impact fees 2-3 years ago. I actually was the person, Peter Christie had me work on it when I was on city council, putting it together. And the numbers have added up pretty well. It's really about $1,100 a house for a new construction house. Mm-hmm. And so the rules are that you get these impact fees because of your growth, and certain expenses are going up because of the growth. And so they've added up pretty well. The fire department is spending, and also I should say part of the rules, you have to spend it within 7 years of when you receive it. So the fire department is spending almost $1 million this year. They're using it on some of their construction on the fire training tower and whatnot. And just recently, the police have used about $300,000 having to do with IT for their new building. They had some costs on the IT side were a little more than they expected. And, you know, it's gotten to be all that stuff so sophisticated now with the sound equipment and whatnot and the cameras and all. So, and the library has a little bit of a smaller impact fee, but they used $16,000 for some new books and shelving and whatnot, particularly in the children's area. They're having tremendous growth in the number of kids and young families using the facility, which is nice to see.
You know, I got confused there for a minute. I was thinking more about the funding, but let's explain, mostly for me, but for everybody else that doesn't know, what is an impact fee? What does that mean?
Oh, well, it's a fee that, it's a statutory thing that you're allowed to have a fee attached to new construction as long as it goes for things that have to do with the growth of the city. So actually, when we implemented ours, it was a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and you figure out literally what you can justify, what expenses you can justify, and therefore what the amount should be. And ours is around $1,100 a house.
Gotcha.
And it's a little more on a commercial establishment. But so every time somebody gets a permit for a new house, they pay that fee also, the impact fee. And it just adds up, and then you use it for, you know, the things that you had mentioned in the first place that have to do with the growth. So you can't use it to replace something. Say we're getting a new police car. The old one has 120,000 miles. Now we're getting the new one. You can't use it for that. It has to be for something that's new. So if you add a new policeman because your city has grown, and then he needs a police car, that kind of expenditure would be appropriate for an impact fee. So you can't just use it for anything. It has to be something that occurred because of the growth. And in the case of the library, our librarian, you know, we keep track of how many new library cards we get and whatnot. And she says we constantly have people coming in who are from out of town and just moved here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people, when they move, it's one of the first things they do is go to the library. So it's really encouraging from her point of view to see all the new usage going on there. In fact, the other day was just terrible weather. It was really cold. And she was recounting to us that she actually had 10 new library cards that day. And we were just astounded because it was so cold, and she even closed a little earlier because of the bad weather, wasn't open in the evening.
Sure.
That you would have a bunch of new people living in a day like that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, that's fabulous. It really is. Thank
Yeah.
you for explaining that, because, you know, sometimes we throw terms around and some of us know what it means and some of us are afraid to ask.
Yeah.
And then there's me. I'm going to ask because I think we need to make it clear to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
that's
to me.
great. Sure.
Okay, so you had a work session the other night, and the CDS.
Yeah, that's the Community Development Department, and they gave a summary of what went on in 2023, which I thought was great for council to hear that. And we had 497 permits for new houses, and the year before we'd had about 540. So it went down just a little bit, but we were surprised with the interest rates going up so much that the housing market was still so vibrant. Some of the other things he mentioned I thought were pretty interesting. Well, total permits, you know, because there's a lot of different things you do around the home, you might need a permit. There were 2,969 permits issued, so that department has been very busy for sure. That's not counting the AC, whatever the ACC does permit-wise. That's just the city. And you know, we have some one thing I found really interesting, we have some trail counters in place to count how many people use the trails. And in 2022, it was 220,000 or so. And in 2023, it was 309,000. But what's interesting is the trail counters are mostly on the east side trails, and they're on the Huntley Gravity Trail on the west side. The other west side trails, we didn't have counters yet. We're getting some ordered and putting them in there. So when I say we had 309,000, that's actually undercounting.
Yes.
Clearly. It was probably much more than that, probably over 400,000. So what it does is they put the counter near the trail, and it'll count anybody on a bike or walking. And
Not squirrels and
yeah, they're
things.
Heat sensitive and whatnot, so they are able to distinguish. They don't count deer and squirrels and that kind of thing, just people. So it's pretty interesting to see. So what happens, say you're riding your bike and it's near the trailhead. If you rode around a lot, it might count you 2-3 times, you know, when you go to another trailhead or whatnot. But it gives you a pretty good picture of how many people are using the trail. So that number is almost 1,000 people a day, and it's an undercount.
Wow.
If you think about it, if you divide it by 365, you know, 365,000 would be 1,000 a day. So we probably have actually more than 1,000 a day when you consider we didn't have them on all the trails yet.
You know, that's really wild because, you know, not that I ride a bike out there or anything like that, but even when I'm walking the trails, I rarely see anybody. So that just shows you we have 100 miles of trails, and 1,000 people are out there somewhere.
Well, they also track what months are the busiest, and, you know, of course, weekends are usually a little busier than during the week. But it's real busy around April, May, June before it gets too hot. But oddly enough, this year, the #1 day in the whole year was December 9th.
Really?
I think it was one of those things where it's abnormally warm, you know, and people are thinking, hey, it's not always going to be warm like this. I'm going to get out there. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that surprised a lot of people.
I love stats. I could just data mine stats forever because I think they're fascinating with the things you come up with.
Yeah, it is really good to have the data, you know, when you're trying to decide things or decide how to operate things. It's great to have data so you can see what's going on. So.
Well, I skipped ahead a little bit earlier with the snow removal and all that, but I know you guys were standing ready. Not only did you do a fascinating job with the streets department, but you were standing ready. A lot of people commented that the graders and the sand trucks and everything were ready to go.
Yeah.
So good job. Now, obviously, on some of the back roads, or if you're on a street that you're the only one, you clear the main roads first, correct?
Yeah. That's one thing that impresses me is because I live on a pretty small street. There's only about 8 houses probably on it, and they'll get out there even once or twice. But yeah, it's the main streets obviously first, and there's they get to know what's what. I mean, there's certain streets that, for instance, Trafalgar, it's well traveled, and when you get close to 71, there's a big drop off.
Yeah.
And they get to know what those places are that we really need to get the salt and sand out on this hill, in a hurry, because otherwise people have a real problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, now we can talk about the millage for the police election, election coming
yeah,
up. Sorry.
yeah. I know I've brought this up several times, but we do have a police election for 1/2 mil coming up it's a March 5, and early voting starts February 20. And so the 1/2 mil for the average homeowners, that would be $20 a year. That's an important thing to know. And the other thing is that those funds are isolated. All those funds have to go for police pensions. What happened is we passed a 1/2 mil in 2014, and the department's grown so much, and they were guessing what they needed at the time. You're allowed to go up to 1 mil, and they only did 1/2 mil. They were trying to take it easy on the taxpayers. And the department's grown so much, and compensation has grown. And so we're at the point now where the pension costs us a little over $600,000 a year, and the 1/2 mil brings in $314,000. So that's why we need the other 1/2 mil, so we'll be able to still cover it.
That makes sense.
But as far as I know, I think the only times we've had elections for asking for more money was in 2014. We got 1 mil for the firefighters and 1/2 mil for the police in 2014. Then in 2020, we had the 1% sales tax election for that was for the new safety building,
Right.
and new fire station, and for the fire training tower. So those are the only 2 times we've asked the taxpayers for a tax increase. So, you're hesitant to ask for it, but this is a very modest one, and I thought it was for a good cause, and a cause that the people in Bella Vista believe in.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the new fire training tower. It's finished, isn't it? Or it will be very, very soon.
It's virtually finished. In fact, there was supposed to be a meeting this morning at the Bella Vista Business Association at the fire training tower, and they decided to cancel it because of the weather. I don't think they would have a very good turnout because, early in the morning it's so cold, it's still pretty slippery. But anyway, so it's virtually done. It's going to be done by the end of January, and basically there's a building that's just like a fire station, except it doesn't have sleeping rooms. It has a big open area to serve almost like a classroom, where you could have training in there and talk about things. And it has 2 bays, one for a fire truck and one for an ambulance. So that's going to serve as kind of a backup. We've got 4 fire stations. For that, there'll be a couple of folks there, and that would be a 5th one. If sometimes all the ambulances maybe are out, and that way you'd have, a little more backup there. And then the training tower that's built by specialized folks from out of town. That's all they do is build training towers. And it's, of course, next to that building. But if you look at that one building, you think, gee, that looks just like a fire station. But it doesn't have the bedrooms and whatnot. When you go inside.
Yeah.
And then the training tower is the tower, and it has potential for all kinds of different training that you can do. So.
Well, we're going to take a real quick break here, and then we'll get back, because I think that's the last item on our 1% bond, right?
Yeah.
That was coming up. And but we could talk about this. The bond's projected to be paid off when? Early?
Well, yeah. Initially, they were, they do some projections when they first do the bond, and they were thinking it'd be paid off in 2031. But right now they're saying it'll be paid off in October 2027, which means the city sales tax has really done better than they thought it would. So if the tax stays even, it'll be paid off in October 27. If the receipts increase any, it will be paid off even sooner.
Good news.
Yeah.
Let's
so it
take a
is
quick
good.
break, and we'll be right back because we've got some other great things to talk about.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Pause it. Pause it.
Demonstration and fire underway.
You're cutting into my time. Hi there, we're back. You know what? I saw an ad, or not an ad, a story in the paper not too long ago concerning sewer hookups. I believe there was a senator, Josh.
Yeah, Josh Bryant. Actually, he's not our senator. He's a senator from Rogers area. The senator that covers Bella Vista area is Jim Dotson.
That's what I thought.
So Josh Bryant, for some reason, has taken a great interest in Bella Vista, and in a negative way. He was one of the movers and shakers, I guess, on the short-term rental issue, where they didn't want any regulation. And he was one of the people that proposed a law that there'd be no regulation at all of short-term rentals. So we had a little bit of a back and forth on that, as you know. And what he did recently is, well, what this article was about is the rule in Bella Vista. It was established in 2012. You know, we have a private outside nonprofit that does, it's called Village Wastewater, that does our sewer. So they have run sewer lines in certain areas, only certain areas, they're not everywhere. And so the rule they made up was, or the city did, is if you sell your house and the sewer line's there, then you have to hook up. Under the theory that it's easier to do that when you're selling the house. Most places in the country, what they do is they run the sewer line and you have to hook up right then. So they're trying to give people a break. So Josh asked the Attorney General, the thrust of the article was, he asked the Attorney General, hey, is this legal to require people to hook up? And the article implied the Attorney General said it was not. He really didn't say that. He kind of said, well, it might be, it depends on the circumstances, kind of things. But what happened, what he didn't realize is 11 years ago, after this law was passed, someone litigated it, sued the city, and the city won. It was Judge John Scott in the circuit court in Benton County, and the people sued did not appeal. So I checked with our attorney, Jason Kelly, and he said, well, usually people ask the attorney generals for opinions when there's no law on the subject, so they want to know what the law is. And Jason Kelly, our attorney, said, well, a case that has been decided is more powerful than the Attorney General's opinion. So the article was kind of barking up the wrong tree, really. You know, it was implying that, hey, maybe that's not right, that you want people to hook up when they sell the house and there's a line there. The fact is, most places in Bella Vista, there isn't a line there.
Right.
And we really would like to get more people on septic, and actually a lot of people are on sewer, and a lot of people would like to be on sewer. But it's a big financial expense. So anyway.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens here.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk. Where are we on the new construction of the fire station number 1? I know it's coming along. I know that.
You know, the police moved out of that 2-story part of the building, and they did demo it, meaning cleared out the whole inside in November and December. And now, right now, they're starting the construction internally. So those 2 stories are going to be all living quarters for the fire people. And they just started that. I think it'll take about 6 months. So, and then we have some other stages, as I've mentioned in the past, having to do with that. But so I think the whole process, it's going to be I was this part with City Hall. First, the part for the firefighters would be done in about 6 months. The part with City Hall and the fire officers' offices are that'd probably be a year.
Yeah.
It'd be the end of the year. And then after that, they're going to fix up where City Hall used to be for community development. But
Okay.
the employees are all anxious for that to be done, and I know the firefighters are anxious for the living quarters part to be done, of
Sure.
course. But
Absolutely.
it's going to be a little bit of a process.
So we've got some upcoming events here. What is Winterfest?
Oh, that's something they had last year for the first time, and it's actually sponsored by the local Rotary Club. And it's going to be February 3rd, which is a Saturday. It's for kids. And what they do is they have you can sign up from 10 to 12 or 1 to 3. They have 2 different sessions. And last year was the first year they'd done it in a while. It was a big success. They did it at St. Bernard's, but this year it's going to be at the Rec Center, which was formerly known as Reardon Hall. I think for a while we're going to have to say formerly known as Reardon
Yeah,
Hall
like-
until people get used to that.
Exactly.
But it's going to be fun to have it, that new facility there for the POA. I need to backtrack a little bit. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about the police millage is we are going to have a couple of public sessions, and one of them's January 23rd. It's in the evening at the Rec Center, 6 p.m., so the public can come ask questions about it. And the other one, we purposely had 2. The second one's February 6th, and it's going to be in the police training room, and it's during the day.
Okay.
So we want to have an evening one and a day one.
Just to make sure people understand what it
public
is.
can come and ask questions and whatnot, and we'll have some handouts about it just so they understand it. And I'm making a few speeches in the next couple of months at churches and whatnot also about that subject. So, or
Okay.
sometimes it's about the city in general, and we just add in that part. So,
But that's good.
Yeah.
I have an awful lot of new folks here, so the more people that understand
yeah,
the city and who to go to and
yeah.
who you are and all of that.
Yeah, I really notice one of the times you really notice that is at those newcomers meetings they have every 3 months. People really like getting information and understanding how everything works. And of course, when you're new, it's even more confusing figuring out who's on first and whatnot.
That's right. And the TV station really loves it because we've gotten a couple of really good volunteers from that area.
have you?
They've watched it,
Yeah.
they've seen it, they know that we're there, so we're
Yeah.
grateful for it too.
Yeah, I sit there and listen to Tom Judson go into all the where all these things are located, and you realize, wow, there's a lot of things to do in Bella Vista.
Yes.
It's pretty neat.
Absolutely it is. I know that we've got another meeting, informational meeting, I guess, on the potential charter school. It is potential at this point, right? It's not a...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're pretty serious about it. Yeah, they were going to have a meeting in early January, and they canceled it because of the weather. It was one of those evenings it was not good weather. So they are going to reschedule that. I haven't heard a date yet, but it's called Founders Classical Academy, and it's going to be grades K through 6. And they're going to have another informational meeting, and they are going ahead and applying with the state. You know, I never knew that much about the fine points of how charter schools work. I was just aware of their existence, like a lot of people. And there's a commission with the state, and you actually apply to have the charter school, and they consider all the ins and outs to it. But I think, well, this group has several in Arkansas. So they, there's one in Bentonville, one in Rogers, and 2 or 3 down Little Rock. So they kind of know how the system works, and the commission's familiar with them. And also, I think Bella Vista has a good story to tell as far as being a location for one.
Sure.
You know, with the freeway coming around the west side, the bypass 49, I think it's definitely going to affect the west side, and there's going to be a tendency for more young families to move to the west side. But I do believe, you might say, well, the mayor doesn't have to do with schools, so you don't have to worry about these sort of things. But I did kind of encourage to have a charter school here, and I am very much convinced that for anybody who lives on the west side, it absolutely will increase your home value. I don't care if you're 40 years old or 80 years old, it just straight up will increase your home value. Because now you've got this bypass where it's easier to get into town for commuting if you were working in Bentonville or Rogers or wherever. And then if you have a school that's, in addition to the public school, another school that's attractive, well, it's just naturally going to encourage the younger families to see the west side as a viable option. So.
And I guess there's been no plans, because we're still in the planning stage, on where it might be. I mean, land's a little scarce.
Yeah, they were talking the near west side, and they haven't really made an announcement on the exact location. So.
But that's in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you, you want to talk about the Greater Bentonville Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I know it's kind of an odd topic for Bella Vista, but I was asked to actually join the board of the Greater Bentonville Chamber of Commerce. They're trying to reach out and have more outside people in, and so I agreed to do that. You might think, well, you're over Bella Vista, you should be very, have kind of a micro focus just on that. But since I've become mayor, I've started to realize how important the regional relationships are. We're involved in the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission, and they're very helpful in getting grants and whatnot. In fact, just recently, we've had people reach out to us. And a lot of times you're trying to get these grants from the federal government, and the regional folks feel we'll have a better chance of success if several cities go together on certain grants. And we've actually had people reach out to Bella Vista and ask us, Rogers and Bentonville, people like that, to go in with them for a grant. Because they think it'll increase our chances of getting it. So I'm all for that if they...
Absolutely.
If that will help.
That's right.
And that's just an example of things. And there's just so much interplay between the different cities and communities. This is Northwest Arkansas Council, and there's just all kinds of different. You realize once you're with the city, there's so many regional relationships that are important. So I decided to go ahead and be on the Greater Bentonville Chamber of Commerce. I think it's good to know what's going on, and
well, there's a lot of cooperation, help out with the police, and even across the Missouri line, we kind of work a little bit together there, and the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, And anyway, think about it. You're driving up 49. Where does one city start and where does one stop? And it all looks like one long Northwest Arkansas corridor.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about the police and fire, because there's way more cooperation back and forth than people realize. The fire department actually has a contract to cover the Walmart in Jane and the distribution center up there, and because they need a fire department of a certain substance to be able to cover their facilities. And, in southwest Missouri, there just isn't anything that's up to that level. And I noticed with the police, there's a lot of cooperation back and forth, coming across city lines and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's in some ways, it's gratifying to see that.
Oh, I think it's great. We have a few minutes left, or a few seconds left, really. Let's remind everybody when the next city council meeting is.
Yeah, it'll be next Monday, which is, I guess it's the 22nd, January 22nd. And it'll be at 6:30 p.m. And I do think after this month, well, we'll see. Next week is the meeting, so it's at 6:30 p.m. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But one thing I wanted to mention, I meant to mention at the beginning, we had a sad event. We had an employee this past weekend pass away.
Oh, yes.
Jesse Tamayo. He was with the He was a code enforcement officer, which was under the police department, but he'd been with the city several years. And he had some health problems recently, and only in his early 50s. He had a family and whatnot. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
Absolutely.
This tough time.
Thank you for mentioning that. And we will see you next month, and we'll see you at the city council meeting.
Okay, great.
All
Thank
right,
you so
take care.
much.
Take care. Next time.